Karen tried to slash our budget, so I got her entire department shut down. I never thought one meeting could turn everything upside down. You know, that one a year ago was just a budget review meeting. It was supposed to be some sort of our typical corporate get-together, but it ended up being the thing that kicked everything off. And after that, my career, my team's future, and even the whole company structure changed forever. So, I was working in the IT department of this mortgage company for over 5 years. It wasn't exactly glamorous, but at least it was stable. My team wasn't too big, just 22 techs, and we handled all the internal tech support. The company was growing fast, so with that came all the regular security issues, customer complaints, and tech problems that we were always clearing up behind the scenes. We were sort of like the unsung heroes, you know? Or at least, that's what I used to think of us. But Karen, the VP of accounting, saw things differently. She viewed us as a necessary evil. She really didn't like that we had to make sure everyone followed the data security rules, even if it slowed her team down. I mean, it is way easier to blame someone else than to actually solve the issues yourself. And boy, was she good at blaming others. So when 2 mortgage payments went awol, thanks to a Nigeria scam, the company rep was on the line, and I could totally feel the pressure building up. Karen totally jumped at the chance to push for her department's needs. In her head, it was the perfect reason to grow her little empire. She really didn't care about any security risks. All she saw were the numbers on a spreadsheet, and as far as she was concerned, it was just burning a hole in the company's wallet. Long story short, I was immediately pulled into a meeting with her. I tried to explain what was going on. We were closing old access points, working on new security protocols, and rolling out better safeguards. But Karen just wasn't having it. She didn't want to hear our reasons. All she cared about was the results. And when things didn't go her way, she had this thing about playing dirty. So, at the next budget meeting, she puts on a show and plays recordings of those horrific customer service calls from the IT department. The thing is, the texts she highlighted weren't even with the company anymore. They'd been swapped out months ago for better, skilled workers who delivered 5-star service. But honestly, Karen didn't give a damn about that. She was trying to make it sound like a big deal, something that totally justifies cutting our budget. And she did that right in front of the CEO, the CFO, and everybody else who could actually make a decision. I stood my ground. I laid out the facts, the numbers, and pointed out that even though we were small, we were dealing with more customer service requests than her whole department. But Karen wasn't backing down. At every meeting after that, she kept at it. She wanted to expand her team by slicing ours. It got really personal, and from then on, I realized I had to stay on my toes. The thing was, Karen turned out to be much brighter than I thought. She stopped bashing our budget head on. Instead, she started playing a more subtle game, playing with the system. Karen had her team start hitting up the IT department for stuff we couldn't fix, knowing full well we didn't have the passwords or access to the internal systems they were inquiring about. We couldn't really help them with those issues. All we could do was give them the right number and hang up. But you know what? Karen's team totally knew how to leave bad satisfaction ratings. I'd checked the feedback, and every call with her team got a terrible rating. Our departmental score dropped from 98 to 72 in just a few weeks. I couldn't just let that fly. So I started going through the call records and reaching out to the folks who'd left bad reviews. I had to find out what was making them so unhappy. It wasn't long before I found something pretty crazy. Karen's team was being super unhelpful on purpose. They were calling us about stuff they knew we couldn't handle, and then slapping us with negative feedback to mess up our ratings. It was clear now. She was out to get us. But I wasn't going to sit back and watch her win. I had to push back, and I had to be smart about it. So I teamed up with a couple of my coworkers, and we got call recording set up for everybody in the company. Now, it wasn't just a matter of tracking customer service calls. It became all about catching Karen red-handed. So, for weeks, I listened in on every call. And quite frankly, what I found was much worse than expected. Karen's team wasn't just bad at their job. They were super rude. They cut people off, entirely ignored customer concerns, and sometimes straight up lied about what they could or could not do. At the same time, my team was handling way more calls, fixing complex tech issues, and still keeping our customer service scores awesome. We were doing everything just right, and Karen was just looking to take it all away. The turning point came when I collated a report of all the complaints from Karen's department. Call recordings, customer feedback, and detailed metrics. I walked into my boss office and laid it all out. "This is what's going on," I said. "If we don't do something about it, we may not be around much longer." They made the decision pretty fast. The CO and the CO were on the same page about taking action, so I got the go. I had to deal with Karen, but I wasn't planning on going in solo. I had my team behind me, and I had all the data to back up everything I was going to say. So when the next budget meeting came around, it was my turn to chime in. Karen kicked things off as usual, with her same old gripes about how we weren't hitting her expectations. But this time, I had something better than just talk. I played back the recorded calls from her team. These quick, rude chats with customers who were super frustrated and unhappy. So I pulled up this chart that showed how many calls each department got and how long it took them to sort them out. My team handled more calls with fewer people, and our customer satisfaction was still way higher. Karen finally hit her breaking point. She was trying to keep it cool, but this time the CO was not letting things go. "I honestly don't understand why we are paying for this," he said. "We can outsource the whole department and, in actuality, save money, actually get even better service." It wasn't long before Karen's department was taken apart. They first booted the people who had disciplinary problems, then let go of the old-timers who had been there forever, but were not bringing anything to the table that the industry needed anymore. Last, but not least, they got rid of Karen too. She had no choice but to pack her bags. And honestly, I didn't feel an ounce of guilt. Actually, I felt a little better. Months went by. Things died down. My team was on fire, and the company was running smoother than ever. Then, out of the blue, I saw something that dropped my stomach. Karen's name was on a job posting for a new department. She had scored a new role, one in which she wouldn't hold as much power or sway. Yet, try as I might, I couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't done yet. Karen's comeback wasn't that dramatic. She didn't freak out or anything, and she never tried to monkey with me again. But man, could I ever feel her lurking around just waiting for that perfect chance to strike? Every time we ran into each other, the tension was through the roof, and though she never more or less confronted me, I could not get rid of the feeling that she was still conniving to get back in charge. I kept a close eye on her, noting every little thing she was doing. She wasn't as aggressive as she used to be, but that cold, calculating air about her was still there. I just couldn't help but wonder what her next move would be. Would she want to establish another department to rival mine? Would she try some underhanded tricks on me once more? I didn't know for sure, but I was ready if it happened. You know what? Karen totally underestimated me. She didn't get how determined I was to protect my team and my job. But honestly, she also didn't realize how strong it is to do things the right way. In the end, it wasn't just about winning no matter what. It was about doing the right thing, even when everything was against you. And because of that, I came out on top. So Karen's story wasn't over yet, but mine was only just beginning. I was pretty sure that day in the meeting. I decided to stand because, literally, I had nothing more to lose. Karen always attended those meetings, just waiting for a chance to put me and my team in a bad position. But I wasn't afraid anymore that day. Everything went pretty smoothly, and then when I laid out all the evidence, something hit me. Even those guys who probably thought they were home free and that it was game over had to realize a whole new reality now. Anyways, after the meeting wrapped up and everybody bounced, I took a sec to take it all in. I was feeling pretty powerful. The CO made it clear that my team wasn't in danger anymore. That was awesome. But honestly, it felt even better knowing that I'd finally taken back what's rightfully mine. It's not about me. It's for all those people who've been grinding behind the scenes and never got any credit. But something inside me changed the moment Karen walked out of the room. She hadn't been close to being finished. She wasn't the type to roll over and let someone else take a piece of hers without a fight. Everything had just flipped in a way I didn't fully see coming. A week later, Karen came back into the office with a new outlook. A vibe way less cocky than before. She wasn't bringing up cutting my team. She was speaking of reviving hers. However, I could tell she wasn't giving up on her old habits. Rather, she was trying to regroup and find a new angle. I could never quite get a handle on how to look at her. She just couldn't seem to wrap her head around the fact that her time trying to mess with us was done. When one of her former coworkers, who hadn't even worked with her anymore, told me that Karen had been kicked out of future meetings, it was like a huge weight was lifted off my shoulders. But I just couldn't get over this feeling that something wasn't right. Like, was she really done? That's the thing that kept popping up in my head. I didn't want to keep thinking about the past because when stuff goes crazy, you gotta look forward, not backward. Right now, I'm just trying to figure out how to deal with this new situation. I really didn't want to think about Karen anymore. But even if she wasn't around anymore, I still couldn't get rid of the thought that she could pop back up with some new plan. Something way bigger, something riskier. Karen never quit playing her games in the background. She would just lounge around the office all the time. I had no idea what to expect regarding her coming back, but I knew she would come back. And what do you know? A few months later, she jumped ship to another company. This time, however, she was not a competitor but an old friend looking for a new job. I had no idea what this change was about, but one thing was certain. I was not going to be at ease yet. It was not long before I received her very first call. This time around, I answered much calmer than expected. I did not want to be so formal, not after all we had been through. I was no longer afraid. "Hey, how can I help you?" I asked, my voice chill, kind of distant. There was a quick moment of silence before Karen jumped in. "Hey, I get that you might not want to hear from me, but I just wanted to give you a heads up that we could be teaming up on some new projects pretty soon." Honestly, those words felt way more like a threat than an offer. But instead of trying to defend myself like I usually would, I just chose to stay chill. I had already made my point. This was a whole new game now. "Hey man, like I said, I hope this thing works out for everyone. But just so you know, I ain't gonna let what my team's worked so hard for get messed up again." Karen paused before responding. "I've changed a lot, but I think these are changes that can help us all out. You and your team are so talented, and I've been thinking about that a lot lately." I didn't know what to make of it. Was she actually changing? Was this some kind of mind game, or was she really trying to start anew? I couldn't tell, but one thing I definitely knew was that I couldn't let her come back and screw up everything we had worked so hard for. The chat didn't last much longer after that, but it was far from over. I now realized that as long as Karen was around, there would always be new battles, more games to play, and more tricks she would pull on us. But bring it on, I say. I wasn't afraid like that person at the beginning anymore. I had already proved that my team and I were vital, and no one could take that from us. A couple of months later, Karen hit me up again. This time, I was totally ready for her. "Hey, I know you're probably not too excited to hear from me," she said, kind of casually, but I could totally sense the tension lurking in her voice. I did not hesitate. "What do you want, Karen?" She finally got to the point this time. "I work on the project where the skill set of your guys would be super helpful. I think we might have some chance of collaboration." I leaned back in my chair and thought about it for a moment. I wasn't really into her, but I knew if I wanted to move up, I had to go along with it. "Let's talk, but this time it's my way or the highway." That was the end of the conversation, but somehow, I felt this wasn't the last I'd heard from Karen. She was a tough cookie, but at that point, I held the upper hand. My crew was tighter, way more cohesive, and ready for anything she would throw our way. If Karen thought she could just walk in and take control again, she was sadly mistaken. This time, I wasn't going to let her have it.